In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from Earth and its familiar stars, the starship Eclipse drifted silently through the endless void. Inside the ship's command center, Captain Daniel Hayes sat in his chair, staring at the blinking alert on the main screen. His fingers tapped lightly on the armrest as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The ship's sensors had picked up something unusual, a faint but steady signal coming from deep within the Andromeda sector. It wasn't just any signal. It was a distress call. Lieutenant Laura Bennett, the ship's communications officer, leaned closer to her console, adjusting her headset as she focused on the strange transmission. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, and her sharp green eyes narrowed as she studied the data. "It's not random noise," she said after a moment, her voice calm but curious. "This is deliberate. Someone, or something, is trying to send a message." Daniel turned to look at her. "Can you decode it?" he asked. His tone was measured, but there was an edge of urgency beneath it. Humanity had never ventured this far into space before. The idea that someone else might already be out here sent a shiver down his spine. Laura shook her head. "Not yet. The pattern doesn't match any known language, human or alien." But she hesitated, glancing at the screen again. "There's something about it. It almost feels familiar." The rest of the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Ensign Olivia Grant, a young engineer with a knack for solving impossible problems, spoke up. "Familiar how?" "Like Earth familiar." "I don't know," Laura admitted. "Maybe it's just my imagination. But parts of it remind me of old radio signals, like Morse code or something." Daniel stood up, pacing slowly across the command center. He stopped near the large viewport, gazing out at the infinite expanse of stars. The thought lingered in his mind. Could this really be a message meant for humanity? If so, who had sent it? And why? Dr. Ryan Carter, the ship's xenobiologist, joined the conversation. "If it's a distress signal, we can't ignore it," he said firmly. "Even if it's not meant for us, ethics demand we investigate. What if someone's in trouble?" Daniel nodded. "Agreed. We'll prepare a team to check it out." He glanced at Laura. "Keep working on decoding the signal. I want to know everything we can before we get there." As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change everything. The Eclipse wasn't just exploring uncharted territory anymore. It was stepping into the unknown. And whatever awaited them on that distant planet, it was clear they weren't alone in the universe. Hours passed as the Eclipse adjusted its course toward the source of the signal. The crew worked tirelessly, running simulations and preparing equipment for the journey ahead. Laura stayed glued to her station, replaying fragments of the transmission over and over. Each time she listened, the signal seemed to grow clearer, more intentional. It was as though it was reaching out to them, calling them closer. Finally, the planet came into view. Through the viewport, it appeared lush and vibrant, with swirling clouds of violet and gold painting the sky. Forests stretched across the surface, interspersed with jagged mountains and shimmering lakes. It was beautiful, but also mysterious. Something about it felt off. Daniel gathered his team in the briefing room. "We're going down there," he announced. "Stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into. This could be survivors, explorers, or even something hostile. Our job is to find out and represent humanity well." The team nodded, determination etched on their faces. As they suited up and boarded the shuttle, Daniel took one last look at the planet below. Whatever secrets it held, they were about to uncover them. And once they did, nothing would ever be the same again. The shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, its engines humming softly as it cut through thick clouds of violet mist. Inside, the team sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Captain Daniel Hayes gripped the controls tightly, his eyes fixed on the view ahead. The surface below was a mix of dense forests, sprawling plains, and jagged cliffs that glimmered faintly under the strange light of the alien sun. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. As the shuttle touched down on a flat patch of ground near what appeared to be ruins, Daniel turned to his team. "Remember," he said firmly, "we don't know what we're dealing with. Stay sharp, stay together, and no unnecessary risks." Everyone nodded, checking their gear one last time before stepping out into the unknown. The air outside was cool and carried a faint, sweet scent, like flowers mixed with something metallic. Ensign Olivia Grant adjusted her scanner, letting it sweep the area for signs of danger or technology. Dr. Ryan Carter knelt by a cluster of glowing plants, studying their structure with fascination. "These aren't just plants," he murmured. "They seem to pulse with energy, almost like they're alive in ways Earth plants aren't." Laura Bennett scanned the horizon, her hand resting on the weapon at her side. "I don't see any movement yet," she said cautiously, "but I feel like we're being washed." Daniel led the group toward the ruins, which rose from the landscape like broken teeth. The structures were made of smooth stone, weathered by time but still intact enough to show intricate carvings along their surfaces. Some of the designs looked eerily familiar, patterns resembling stars, waves, and even human-like figures. "This doesn't make sense," Daniel muttered. "How could an alien civilization know about us?" Before anyone could answer, a soft hum filled the air. It wasn't loud, but it resonated deeply, almost vibrating through their chests. The team froze, turning in the direction of the sound. From behind a crumbling wall, several figures emerged. They were tall and slender, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly. Thin veins of light pulsed beneath their skin, giving them an otherworldly glow. Their faces were calm, expressionless, yet somehow welcoming. One of the beings stepped forward, holding out a small crystalline object that pulsed with a steady rhythm. Its mouth didn't move, but a voice echoed in their minds. "We have waited," it said simply. The words weren't spoken aloud but felt like thoughts planted directly into their heads. Dr. Carter blinked in surprise. "Telepathy," he whispered. Daniel raised a hand cautiously, signaling his team to stay calm. He took a step closer to the being, his voice steady despite the surreal situation. "Who are you?" he asked aloud. "What do you want?" The being tilted its head slightly, as if considering the question. Then another thought came to them. "You came. We called, and you came." Laura frowned, lowering her weapon slightly. "You sent the signal?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The being nodded, or at least, it seemed to. "Yes. Help. For your kind." Daniel exchanged a glance with his team. This wasn't what they had expected. These creatures weren't hostile. They seemed hopeful. "Why did you call us?" he pressed. "How did you even know about us?" The being gestured toward the ruins, inviting them to follow. As they walked, more details became clear. The carvings on the walls depicted scenes that shocked the team. Images of Earth, of humans, of cities and oceans. There were even depictions of old radio towers and satellites. It was as though these aliens had been watching humanity for centuries. "They've been studying us," Ryan said quietly, awe in his voice. "But how? And why?" The leader of the group stopped near a large pedestal at the center of the ruins. On it rested a device similar to the crystal the being had shown them earlier. It began to glow brighter as they approached, emitting a low hum that matched the rhythm of the distress signal. "You need help," the being's voice echoed again. "We thought you would come sooner." Daniel shook his head, trying to process everything. "Wake," he said. "You think we're in trouble. That's why you sent the signal." The being paused, then replied, "Yes. Your cries reached us long ago. We heard your pain." Olivia glanced at Laura, confusion written across her face. "Cries? What cries?" Laura's eyes widened as realization dawned. "The old radio signals," she breathed. "They must have intercepted them decades ago, maybe even centuries. To them, it sounded like we were calling for help." Daniel stared at the alien, his mind racing. Humanity hadn't meant to send a distress call. It had simply been broadcasting its existence into space. But now, standing here among these mysterious beings who had misinterpreted those signals, he realized the weight of their arrival. They weren't just explorers, and they were ambassadors, representing all of humanity in this unexpected encounter. And whatever happened next, it would change everything. Or the team stood in stunned silence, trying to process what the alien leader had just said. The idea that humanity's early radio signals, meant as harmless broadcasts into the void, had been interpreted as cries for help was both humbling and unsettling. Captain Daniel Hayes took a deep breath, his mind racing with questions. How could they explain this misunderstanding? And more importantly, how would it affect their mission? Dr. Ryan Carter stepped forward cautiously, his scientific curiosity overcoming his initial shock. "You heard our signals," he began slowly, choosing his words carefully. "But why did you think we needed help?" The alien tilted its head slightly, as if puzzled by the question. Its glowing veins pulsed softly, casting faint light over the ruins. "Your voices were weak," it replied telepathically. "We thought your kind was fading, dying." Olivia Grant frowned, glancing at Laura Bennett. "Weak, fading," she whispered. They must have misunderstood the static or the low quality of the transmissions. Laura nodded, her brow furrowed. "It makes sense. To them, our old signals probably sounded distorted, like we were struggling to survive." Daniel cleared his throat, stepping closer to the alien leader. "We're not dying," he said firmly. "In fact, humanity is stronger than ever. We've built ships, explored space, and grown as a species. Those signals you heard, they were just messages, a way of saying hello to the universe." The alien studied him for a moment, its expression unreadable. Then it raised the crystalline object in its hand, which began to glow brighter. "If you are strong," it said, "then perhaps you can help us." "Help you with what?" Daniel asked, his tone cautious but curious. The alien gestured toward the horizon, where dark clouds swirled ominously in the distance. "There is danger beyond the stars," it said, "a shadow that consumes all life. We tried to prepare, but we cannot fight it alone." Ryan exchanged a worried glance with Olivia. "Danger? What kind of danger?" he asked. The alien didn't answer directly. Instead, it led them deeper into the ruins, toward a massive structure half buried in the earth. As they approached, the air grew colder and an uneasy tension settled over the group. The structure resembled a dome, covered in moss and vines, but when the alien touched a panel on its side, the vegetation receded, revealing smooth metallic walls. A door slid open with a soft hiss, and warm golden light spilled out. Inside, the chamber was filled with strange machinery, tall columns of crystal-like material that pulsed with energy, connected by streams of light that seemed to float in midair. At the center of the room stood a large console, covered in intricate patterns that shimmered like liquid. "This is our beacon," the alien explained. "We built it to call others, to unite against the shadow." Olivia moved closer to examine the console, her scanner humming softly. "This technology is incredible," she murmured. "It's far beyond anything we've developed." Laura stayed near the entrance, keeping a watchful eye on the aliens. Despite their peaceful demeanor, something about the situation felt off. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than they were being told. Daniel turned back to the alien leader. "You said there's danger coming. Can you tell us more about it?" The alien hesitated, its glowing form dimming slightly. "It is called the Voidborn," it said finally. "They come from the darkness between stars. They consume everything: light, life, hope. We saw them approach long ago, but we were too afraid to face them alone." Ryan frowned. "Why didn't you warn us sooner? If this threat is real, then Earth could be in danger too." The alien's reply came slowly, almost reluctantly. "We tried, but your voices were so faint, so distant. We thought you were already lost. Now that you are here, perhaps together we can stop them." Daniel glanced at his team, seeing the same mix of concern and determination reflected in their faces. Whatever the truth was, one thing was clear: they couldn't leave without learning more. Humanity might not have sent a distress signal intentionally, but now, standing among these beings who had reached out across the stars, they realized they had a responsibility to act. As the team began examining the beacon and asking more questions, Daniel couldn't help but wonder. Had they truly stumbled upon allies, or had they walked straight into something much bigger than they could handle? As the team continued exploring the chamber, Ensign Olivia Grant carefully examined the glowing machinery. Her scanner buzzed softly as she moved it over the crystal columns, each pulse of light revealing new data. "This is incredible," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The energy output here is off the charts. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Dr. Ryan Carter nodded, running his fingers lightly over the patterns on the central console. The shimmering designs seemed to shift and change under his touch, responding to his presence. "It's not just advanced," he said. "It's alive, or at least it feels that way. Like the whole system is part of something bigger." Captain Daniel Hayes stood nearby, watching the aliens closely. Their translucent forms glowed faintly in the golden light of the chamber, but there was an air of sadness about them. They didn't seem hostile, but their movements were slow and deliberate, as if weighed down by some unseen burden. "What happens if this beacon works?" Daniel asked the alien leader. "What exactly are you trying to do?" The alien paused, its glowing veins dimming slightly. "We hope to gather others," it replied telepathically. "To unite those who can fight. Alone, we cannot stop the Voidborn. Together, perhaps we can." Laura Bennett crossed her arms, her sharp green eyes narrowing. "But why now? You've had centuries to prepare. Why wait until someone answers your call?" The alien hesitated, its form flickering faintly. For the first time, it seemed uncertain. "We feared rejection," it admitted. "Your kind has strength we lack. We thought you might see us as weak, unworthy." Olivia stopped scanning for a moment, looking up at the alien. "That's why you sent the distress signal, to make sure we'd come." The alien nodded. "Yes, we knew you would answer a cry for help, even if it was not yours." Daniel exchanged a glance with Laura. The pieces were starting to fit together, but the picture they formed was unsettling. These beings weren't just asking for help, they were desperate for allies. And now that humanity had arrived, they saw it as their chance to survive. Ryan turned back to the console, his curiosity growing. "If this beacon is so powerful, why haven't you used it already? Why wait for outsiders?" The alien gestured toward the machinery. "The beacon requires balance," it explained. "Two kinds of life working together. Ours alone was not enough. But with your arrival, its glow brightened slightly. Now, it may be possible." Olivia leaned closer to the console, her scanner picking up strange fluctuations in the energy field. "There's something else here," she said, her voice tense. "Something hidden." Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, and the golden light flickered. The aliens stepped back, their forms dimming as the room grew darker. "They are near," one of them whispered telepathically. "Who's near?" Daniel demanded, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. "The Voidborn," the leader replied, its voice tinged with fear. "They sense activity here. They know we try to resist." Panic rippled through the team. Laura tightened her grip on her weapon, scanning the shadows around them. "We need to get out of here," she said urgently. "Whatever these Voidborn are, I don't think we're ready to face them." Daniel shook his head, his jaw set firmly. "Not yet. We came here to find answers, and we're not leaving until we have them." He turned to the alien leader. "Tell us everything. What are the Voidborn? How do we stop them?" The alien hesitated, then touched the console. Images began to appear in the air above it, dark shapes swirling through space, consuming planets and stars. The team watched in horrified silence as entire civilizations were wiped out, reduced to nothingness by an unstoppable force. "They are hunger," the alien said simply. "They feed on life, on energy, on hope. Once they arrive, there is no escape." Ryan clenched his fists, frustration mixing with fear. "So what's the plan? Just sit here and wait for them to destroy us too?" "No," the alien replied. "It's glow strengthening. With your help, we can activate the beacon fully. It will send a signal across the galaxy, a call to all who can fight. Together, we may stand a chance." Daniel looked at his team, seeing determination in their eyes despite the danger. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about protecting not just humanity, but every living thing in the universe. "All right," he said finally. "Let's do it. Show us how to use the beacon." As the team gathered around the console, preparing to work alongside the aliens, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far greater than themselves. Whether they succeeded or failed, one thing was certain: humanity's arrival had changed everything, for better or worse. The chamber grew brighter as the team worked together with the aliens to activate the beacon. Dr. Ryan Carter and Ensign Olivia Grant focused on deciphering the patterns on the console, their fingers tracing the glowing designs while trying to understand how they functioned. The alien leader stood nearby, its translucent form shimmering faintly as it guided them telepathically. "This sequence must align," it said silently, pointing to a cluster of symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the energy field. Olivia adjusted her scanner, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like a puzzle," she muttered. "Each part has to connect perfectly, or the whole system shuts down." Laura Bennett kept watch near the entrance, her weapon ready but her gaze shifting uneasily between the shadows outside and the machinery inside. Something about the situation didn't sit right with her. The urgency in the aliens' actions, the way they spoke of the Voidborn, it all felt too desperate. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this alliance than met the eye. Captain Daniel Hayes moved closer to the alien leader, his voice low but firm. "If we help you activate this beacon, what happens next? What exactly are we calling for?" The alien turned to him, its glowing veins dimming slightly. "Hope," it replied simply. "Others will hear the signal. Some may come to fight. Some may flee. But without unity, none can survive." Daniel nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in his mind. He trusted his team, but he also knew they were walking into uncharted territory. Humanity had never faced a threat like the Voidborn before, and now they were being asked to lead the charge against it. As the team worked, Chief Engineer Matthew Cole entered the chamber, his face pale and tense. "Captain," he said quietly, pulling Daniel aside. "We've got problems. Equipment back at the shuttle is malfunctioning. Random power surges, systems shutting off on their own. And some of the crew, they're reporting strange dreams." "Dreams?" Daniel repeated, frowning. Matthew nodded. "Yeah, they say they're standing among stars, hearing voices telling them to stay here. It's messing with their heads." Daniel glanced back at the aliens, who were busy helping Ryan and Olivia with the console. Could it be them? Are they doing something to us? Matthew shrugged. "I don't know, but I don't like it. We should think twice before trusting them completely." Before Daniel could respond, the ground trembled again, harder this time. The golden light flickered violently, and the hum of the machinery grew louder, almost deafening. The alien leader raised its hands, calming the energy with a wave of its arms. "The Voidborn draw closer," it warned. "We must hurry." Back at the console, Olivia let out a small gasp. "I think I've got it," she exclaimed. "If we sync these two sequences, it should stabilize the beacon long enough to send the signal." Ryan leaned over her shoulder, double-checking the readings. "She's right. Let's do it." As they initiated the process, the crystals began to glow brighter, casting sharp beams of light across the chamber. The air crackled with energy, and for a moment, everything seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a sudden burst, the beacon activated, sending waves of golden light shooting upward through the dome and into the sky. For a few seconds, the team stared in awe at what they had accomplished. The signal was strong, powerful enough to reach across galaxies. But their relief was short-lived. Outside, the dark clouds swirled faster, gathering into a massive storm. Lightning flashed within the clouds, illuminating shadowy shapes moving just beyond sight. The aliens stepped back, their forms dimming rapidly. "They are here," one of them whispered, fear evident even in its telepathic voice. Laura tightened her grip on her weapon, scanning the horizon. "What now?" she asked sharply. "Did the beacon work? Are we safe?" The alien leader shook its head sadly. "Not yet. The signal takes time to spread. Until then, we must hold our ground." Daniel turned to his team, his expression grim but resolute. "All right, everyone. Stay alert. Whatever comes next, we face it together." As the first tendrils of darkness began creeping toward the ruins, the team braced themselves for battle. They had come seeking answers, but instead, they found themselves caught in the middle of a war older than the stars themselves. Whether humanity would emerge as saviors or victims remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. They were no longer alone in the universe. The darkness outside the ruins grew thicker, swallowing the light from the beacon like a living thing. The team stood shoulder to shoulder, their weapons drawn but their faces tense with uncertainty. Captain Daniel Hayes glanced at his crew, then at the aliens, who were now gathered in a tight circle near the glowing console. Their forms flickered faintly, as if their energy was fading under the weight of the approaching threat. "What are those things?" Laura Bennett asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping into her eyes. She kept her weapon trained on the swirling shadows just beyond the edge of the ruins. "Are they alive?" The alien leader hesitated before responding telepathically. Its thoughts were weaker now, more fragmented. "They are not life as you know it," it said slowly. "They are hunger. They consume everything. Light, warmth, hope." Ryan Carter clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "So we're supposed to fight something we can't even understand. Something that eats planets for breakfast." Olivia Grant adjusted her scanner, trying to make sense of the readings. "Whatever they are, they're getting closer. Look." She pointed to the screen, where jagged spikes of energy pulsed erratically. "This isn't natural. It's like they're feeding off the beacon itself." Daniel stepped forward, his jaw set firmly. "Then we shut them down before they get any stronger. Olivia, Ryan, figure out how to disrupt their connection to the beacon. Laura, Matthew, keep an eye on those shadows. If anything moves, take it out." As the team scrambled to follow his orders, strange whispers began to fill the air. At first, they were faint, almost imperceptible, but soon they grew louder, echoing inside their minds. The voices spoke in fragments, urging them to give up, to let go. Some of the crew members froze, clutching their heads as the whispers invaded their thoughts. "It's messing with us," Matthew shouted, shaking his head violently. "We can't focus." Laura gritted her teeth, forcing herself to stay alert. "Don't listen to it. Whatever it says, don't believe it." Daniel turned to the aliens, who seemed to be struggling even more than the humans. "Can you block this?" he demanded. "Protect us somehow." The alien leader shook its head sadly. "Our strength wanes. We cannot hold them back much longer." Just then, Olivia called out from the console. "I think I found something." She pointed to a cluster of symbols that glowed brighter than the others. "If we reroute the energy flow here, we might be able to overload the beacon and sever their link." Ryan nodded, quickly joining her. "Do it, but hurry. Those shadows are moving closer." Outside, the tendrils of darkness began to creep into the chamber, snaking across the floor like liquid smoke. The temperature dropped sharply, and frost formed on the walls. The aliens backed away, their forms dimming until they were nearly invisible. One of them whispered urgently, "You must finish. Now." Daniel raised his weapon, firing a burst of energy at the nearest tendril. It recoiled briefly, but then surged forward again, undeterred. "Keep them busy," He ordered Laura and Matthew. "We need more time." Olivia worked furiously, her hands flying over the console as she input commands. Sweat dripped down her forehead, but she didn't stop. Finally, she looked up, her face pale but determined. "It's ready. But someone needs to trigger the overload manually. Once it starts, there's no turning back." Daniel hesitated only for a moment before stepping forward. "I'll do it. Everyone else, fall back to the shuttle. Now." "No way," Laura snapped, stepping toward him. "We're not leaving you behind." "You have to," Daniel said firmly. "If this doesn't work, humanity needs you to survive. Get out of here while you still can." Before anyone could argue further, the shadows lunged, flooding the chamber. Daniel activated the overload sequence, shouting, "Go. Now." The team hesitated, torn between loyalty and duty, but the aliens urged them onward. "Save yourselves," one of them whispered weakly. "Your kind is our last hope." As the golden light of the beacon flared brightly, consuming the chamber in a blinding flash, the team ran for the shuttle, their hearts heavy with doubt. Had they done enough, or had they just sacrificed their captain, and possibly themselves, to a force they couldn't comprehend? The shuttle roared to life as the team scrambled aboard, their faces pale and streaked with sweat. Ensign Olivia Grant's hands trembled as she worked the controls, her mind racing back to the chamber and the blinding flash of light that had swallowed Captain Daniel Hayes. She clenched her jaw, fighting back tears. "Hold on," she muttered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. The shuttle lifted off the ground just as the ruins below were consumed by a surge of golden energy. Laura Bennett sat near the viewport, her weapon still clutched tightly in her hands. She stared out at the swirling storm of darkness that surrounded the planet, its tendrils writhing like living creatures. For a moment, she thought she saw shapes moving within the shadows, twisted forms that seemed to watch the shuttle as it ascended. She turned away quickly, unable to shake the feeling that they were being hunted. Dr. Ryan Carter leaned against the wall of the cabin, his face etched with exhaustion and guilt. "We left him," he said quietly, almost to himself. "We just left him." Matthew Cole, who was checking the shuttle's systems for damage, shot him a sharp look. "What choice did we have? He gave us an order. Besides, if that beacon didn't work, none of us would have made it out alive." Ryan shook his head, his voice rising slightly. "But what if it didn't work? What if he died for nothing?" Before anyone could respond, the shuttle shuddered violently. A loud crackling sound filled the air as sparks flew from the control panel. Olivia cursed under her breath, her hands moving frantically over the console. "Something's wrong," she shouted. "The shuttle systems are failing." Laura jumped to her feet, scanning the area outside the shuttle. "It's them," she said grimly. "They're not done with us yet." As if on cue, a massive shadow loomed ahead of the shuttle, blocking their path. It was larger than anything they had seen before, a swirling mass of darkness that pulsed with malevolent energy. The team froze, staring in horror as tendrils of black smoke reached out toward the shuttle, wrapping around its hull. "We can't fight this," Matthew said, his voice trembling. "We're out of options." Olivia slammed her fist against the console in frustration. "No, there has to be something we can do." Suddenly, a faint glow appeared in the distance. At first it was small, almost unnoticeable, but it quickly grew brighter, cutting through the darkness like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The shadow recoiled, its tendrils retreating as the light enveloped the shuttle. The team shielded their eyes, squinting against the brilliance. When the light finally faded, the darkness was gone. The shuttle systems stabilized, and the hum of the engines returned to normal. Laura let out a shaky breath, lowering her weapon. What just happened? Ryan peered out the viewport, his expression one of awe. "I think the beacon worked," he said softly. "It must have disrupted the Voidborn, or at least driven them away." Olivia slumped back in her seat, her hands shaking as she guided the shuttle toward orbit. "But at what cost?" she whispered. Daniel. No one spoke for a long moment, the weight of their loss hanging heavily in the air. They had survived, but the victory felt hollow without their captain. When the shuttle docked with the Eclipse, the crew stepped onto the ship in silence. Their relief at being safe was overshadowed by grief and uncertainty. As they gathered in the command center, Laura noticed something strange on the main screen. A new signal was coming in, not a distress call this time, but a response. Dozens of responses, in fact, from species across the galaxy. "They heard us," Ryan said, his voice filled with wonder. "The beacon. It reached them." Laura nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Daniel did it. He gave us a chance to unite, to fight back." Matthew crossed his arms, his expression hardening. "And now we carry the torch. For him. For everyone." As the Eclipse prepared to leave the planet, Laura glanced one last time at the swirling clouds below. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing for certain. Humanity wasn't alone anymore. Whether they would rise as saviors or fall as victims remained to be seen. But they would face it together. The Eclipse soared through the stars, its engines humming softly as it left the mysterious planet behind. Inside the command center, the crew gathered around the main screen, watching as more and more responses poured in from across the galaxy. Each signal was different. Some were simple bursts of energy, others carried complex patterns or strange melodies, but they all shared one thing: a willingness to fight. Laura Bennett stood near the viewport, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her mind kept drifting back to Captain Daniel Hayes, to the moment he had stayed behind to activate the beacon. She clenched her fists, trying to push away the guilt and sadness that threatened to overwhelm her. "He gave us this," she said quietly, almost to herself. "We can't waste it." Dr. Ryan Carter nodded, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Look at this. Species we've never even heard of are answering the call. Some of them must have been waiting for something like this, for someone to bring them together." Ensign Olivia Grant adjusted her scanner, analyzing the incoming signals. "It's not just about numbers," she said. "Each response carries information. Technology, strategies, resources. If we combine everything, we might actually stand a chance against the Voidborn." Matthew Cole leaned against the wall, his expression grim but determined. "But how do we organize all this? We're talking about dozens of species, maybe hundreds. How do we make sure everyone works together?" Laura turned to face him, her voice firm. "We start by leading. Daniel showed us what it means to put the greater good above everything else. Now it's our turn to step up." As the team discussed their next steps, a new message appeared on the screen. It wasn't like the others. It was clear, deliberate, and written in a language eerily similar to human communication. Laura frowned, leaning closer to read it. "This one's different," she said. "It's from the Lumina, the aliens who sent the original distress signal." Ryan translated the message quickly. "They're asking to meet us. They want to join forces, to share their knowledge and help coordinate the alliance." Olivia let out a slow breath. "Do we trust them, after everything that happened?" Laura hesitated, then nodded. "We have to. If we're going to unite the galaxy, we need allies." And they started this. They reached out when no one else did. With the decision made, the Eclipse changed course, heading toward the coordinates provided by the Luminae. When they arrived, they found a massive fleet of ships waiting for them, each vessel glowing faintly with the same golden light as the beacon. The Luminae leader stepped forward, its form shimmering with renewed strength. "You have done what we could not," it said telepathically. "You have united us." Daniel Hayes' sacrifice weighed heavily on the crew, but as they looked out at the growing coalition of species, they felt a spark of hope. Humanity wasn't alone anymore. Together, they would face the Voidborn, and whatever came next. In the days that followed, the Eclipse became the heart of the Alliance, coordinating efforts and building trust among the diverse groups. Plans were drawn up, strategies tested, and technology shared. The galaxy was preparing for war, but it was also learning to work as one. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Laura glanced at the stars streaking past the viewport. She thought of Daniel, of his courage and leadership. Though he was gone, his legacy lived on, not just in humanity's survival, but in the unity he had inspired. The battle ahead would be difficult, perhaps impossible, but as long as they stood together, there was hope. And in the vastness of space, hope was the most powerful weapon of all.